No one hits that far in crosswinds, declared the SEAL instructor, watching his elite snipers miss target after target. The morning sun painted the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado, California, with long golden rays. At the edge of the shooting range, an old man pushed his squeaky cart filled with rakes, pruning shears, and plastic bags. To most of the young operators, he was invisible, just a groundskeeper part of the background. The SEALs lay prone in the dirt, Barrett M107 rifles lined up, scopes adjusted. 800 yards downrange, human silhouette targets swayed with the Pacific breeze. One shot cracked through the air, miss. Another followed, miss again. Petty Officer Rodriguez cursed under his breath. "Wind is playing games today," he muttered. Gusting between 10 and 20 knots, growled Master Chief Instructor Williams. His voice carried the irritation of a man watching his best students struggle. "This is basic marksmanship. 800 yards should be a chip shot for men of your caliber." The snipers adjusted, fired again, and missed. Behind them, the old man paused, rake still in hand. His weathered face turned toward the fluttering flag. He tilted his head, reading the air like others read a book. Then, almost too softly to hear, he said, "Excuse me." 6 heads turned. The SEALs saw a figure in faded blue coveralls with the facility's logo stitched over the chest. His baseball cap sat crooked over his silver hair. Dust clung to his gloves, his boots scuffed from years of labor. He looked nothing like a warrior, only a man who trimmed hedges and fixed sprinklers. "But the wind is coming from the northeast," he continued calmly at about 15 knots. "With this marine layer, you might want to compensate about 3 minutes of angle left and 1 minute of angle up." For a long second, there was silence. Then Lieutenant Jake Parker laughed out loud. "Did the gardener just try to teach us windage?" Rodriguez joined in. "What's next, Gramps? Gonna show us how to clear a room with a leaf blower?" Even Williams cracked a grin. "Arthur, right. I appreciate the input, but these men are trained precision marksmen." Arthur Blackwood only nodded. His gray eyes shifted once more toward the distant target, then back to the young SEALs. I used to do a little hunting back in the day." Arthur had been a fixture here for 12 years. Every Tuesday, every Thursday, and every Saturday, he walked the same path around the shooting range, checking irrigation lines, trimming hedges, sweeping brass casings left scattered by the operators. At 68, his back was slightly bent, his movements methodical. To the SEALs, he was nothing more than furniture. They cracked jokes behind his back, wagering if he even knew which end of the rifle fired bullets. But there was something about him that unsettled Master Chief Williams. The old man's posture, the way he scanned the field, the calm authority in his voice when he spoke of windage, it did not belong to a simple groundskeeper. Williams had spent 3 decades in special operations. He knew the look of men who had lived through battles. "Tell you what," Arthur Williams said slowly. "Why don't you show us what you learned?" Hunting Parker nearly choked. "Master Chief, you can't be serious." "Dead serious," Williams replied. "If Mr. Blackwood thinks he can do better than Navy SEALs, let's see what he's got." Arthur hesitated. For 12 years, he had lived in peace, trimming roses, fixing sprinklers, staying quiet in the shadow of his past. But watching these young men struggle with fundamentals once as natural to him as breathing, something inside stirred. With a sigh, he set the rake down and knelt beside Parker's rifle. "May I?" he asked. Still smirking, Parker slid aside. "Knock yourself out, old man. But when you throw your shoulder out, don't blame us." Arthur lay prone, moving with deliberate precision. His body seemed to merge with the rifle, not a hint of wasted motion. He did not immediately look through the scope. Instead, he stayed still, scanning the field. "Barometric pressure's dropping," he murmured to himself. "Wind steady at 15 knots, but look, see how the grass bends. There's a thermal updraft halfway to target." The SEALs exchanged glances. His words sounded like the language of snipers. Arthur's breathing slowed. 1 breath. 2. On the 3rd exhale, his finger moved like a surgeon's scalpel. The Barrett roared. Dust erupted, gear rattled. Through spotting scopes, 6 SEAL snipers saw the impossible. The bullet had torn dead center through the silhouette, obliterating the target. Silence fell. "Beginner's luck," Parker whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. Arthur chambered another round. This time he did not pause. 30 seconds later, another perfect hit, then a third, then a fourth. By the fifth round, the target was shredded into tatters. Master Chief Williams lowered his binoculars slowly, eyes narrowing. "Arthur," he asked, "what did you say you used to hunt?" For a long moment, nobody moved. Dust from the Barrett's blast still lingered in the morning light. The SEAL trainees blinked at the shredded target as if trying to convince themselves it wasn't real. Lieutenant Parker broke the silence with forced laughter. "Beginner's luck. Anyone can hit once if they pray hard enough." But even he could not ignore what his eyes told him. 5 shots, all perfect. The odds of that happening by luck were 0. Arthur smoothly handed the rifle back to Parker, his hands steady, his breath calm. "Northeast at 15 knots. Compensate 3 left 1 up," he said simply, as if reading instructions off a grocery list. Then he stood dusting his coveralls. That was when a sharp voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" A Navy officer far senior to the group strode onto the range. His eyes narrowed at the sight of a civilian in coveralls holding a sniper rifle. "Who authorized this?" "This is a restricted line." The SEAL stiffened. Rodriguez muttered under his breath. "We're screwed." Williams stepped forward, chin high. "With respect, sir, I authorized it." The officer's gaze hardened. "You let a gardener handle a Barrett." The Master Chief didn't flinch. Instead, he extended a pair of binoculars. "Sir, look downrange." The officer raised the lenses. His jaw tightened. The target was obliterated, 5 holes, dead center mass, closer than any cluster his trainees had managed all morning. When he lowered the binoculars, his expression was caught between disbelief and something else. Respect. Arthur said nothing. He simply retrieved his rake, ready to return to the quiet work he had done for over a decade. But the young operators, now silent, looked at him with new eyes. The arrogance, the laughter, all had vanished. Something about the way the old man had handled the weapon unsettled them. It wasn't just skill, it was familiarity. Master Chief Williams spoke again, his voice quieter now. "Arthur, what did you say you used to hunt?" Arthur lifted his head slowly, his gray eyes heavy with decades of memory. When he spoke, his tone carried weight that silenced even the officer. "Different kind of hunting, Master Chief." Williams studied him carefully. The precision, the breathing technique, the casual mention of MOA adjustments, the way he had read thermals like an old friend. All of it clicked together in his mind. "What's your last name again?" "Arthur Blackwood." The word hit like a detonation. Williams froze. He had heard that name before, whispered in Quantico hallways, etched into Marine sniper lore, spoken with reverence by men who studied long-range killing. Arthur Blackwood Williams repeated almost reverently. "Force Recon, Vietnam." Arthur gave a single nod. Rodriguez's face went pale. "No way. You're the Blackwood, the ghost of the Meong." The SEALs exchanged stunned glances. Every sniper in the military had heard the legend. Arthur Blackwood, the Marine Force Recon sharpshooter who had held the confirmed kill record for more than 40 years. The man whose actions had shifted the outcomes of 3 major battles in Vietnam. The sniper who had disappeared from all official records in 1975, whispered about like a myth in warrior circles. Parker's bravado dissolved into ash. His mouth opened, but no words came. Finally, he managed, "Sir, we didn't know." Arthur's joints creaked as he rose to his feet. His voice was quiet, almost weary. "No reason you should. That was a long time ago, in a different world." He handed the Barrett back to Parker with the same gentleness he might use placing a rose back into soil. His weathered hands gripped his rake once more. "But the wind reading still applies. Northeast at 15 knots. Compensate 3 left 1 up." For the first time, the SEALs looked at him not as a gardener, but as something entirely different, a ghost from the past who had just revealed himself in flesh and blood. Master Chief Williams took a step closer, his voice carrying newfound gravity. "Mr. Blackwood, I think my men could learn a great deal from you." Arthur shook his head, a faint smile on his weathered face. "They're fine operators, Master Chief. They just need to remember shooting isn't about the rifle or the scope or the rank on your chest. It's about listening to the environment. The wind doesn't care who you are. It only responds to respect and patience." He lifted the rake again, preparing to return to his duties. "Besides, I'm just the groundskeeper. You wouldn't want word getting out that your SEALs were taking shooting lessons from the gardener. But then something unexpected happened. Sir Rodriguez blurted, his voice cracked with urgency. Would you teach us just a little? The other trainees turned surprised by his outburst. Even Parker, once arrogant, found himself speaking up softer this time. Please. We want to learn. Arthur paused. Their eyes no longer held mockery, no smirks, no dismissive amusement, only respect, and something else, hunger. He sighed. I suppose I could spare an hour or two after I finish the irrigation system. For the next 3 months, Arthur Blackwood became an unofficial instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. His lessons weren't in any manual. He didn't talk about ballistics charts or computer-assisted scopes. Instead, he taught the old ways. He made them lie still for hours, watching how blades of grass bent under invisible currents. He lit cigarettes just to let them time how long it took the smoke to vanish. He tossed pebbles into puddles, demanding they calculate humidity by the way ripples spread. One evening, under a sliver of moon, he gathered them at the range. No electronics tonight, he said. Use your ears. Feel the wind on your skin. Hear it in the leaves. Trust your instincts. The SEALs thought it madness until they fired. And for the first time, their bullet struck exactly where intended. Slowly, Arthur became more than a gardener. To them, he was mentor. To Parker especially, he was something deeper, the father figure he never had. The true test came unexpectedly. A month later, Coronado hosted a high-profile sniper competition. Officers, dignitaries, and veterans lined the bleachers. The best shooters from across the Navy gathered, including Arthur's trainees. The pressure was crushing. Targets were set at impossible distances, moving silhouettes swaying against gusting crosswinds, some beyond 1,000 yards. Whispers spread in the crowd. Even seasoned operators won't hit these. Parker adjusted his rifle, sweat prickling his neck. He remembered Arthur's voice. Don't fight the wind. Partner with it, Rodriguez repeated under his breath. Respect and patience. One by one, the SEALs fired. Shot after shot, targets shattered. Their grouping was so tight, so precise, that even senior instructors stared in disbelief. But the final round was brutal, a silhouette half concealed in heat haze at nearly 1,400 yards. No shooter had hit it all morning. The command came shooter ready. Parker's breathing quickened. He hesitated. Doubt crept in. And then in the corner of his vision, he saw him, Arthur, standing quietly at the edge of the field, rake in hand, expression calm. Parker exhaled, adjusted. Whispered, 3 left, 1 up. The rifle cracked. The spotter's voice rang out. Impact dead center. The bleachers erupted. Officers applauded. The young SEALs had not only passed the test, they had dominated it. Arthur turned away before the cheering finished, disappearing toward the maintenance shed. But his students knew the truth. Without him, they would have failed. And for the first time, Parker didn't see a gardener. He saw a ghost and a legend walking among them. Word of the competition spread faster than wildfire. By nightfall, someone had uploaded shaky phone footage of the SEALs hitting impossible targets. In the corner of one clip, barely visible, a figure with a rake leaned against the fence, an old man no one could identify. On military forums, speculation exploded. Who's the ghost at Coronado? One post asked. Another claimed, there's a legend hiding in plain sight. Some say it's Arthur Blackwood. Within a week, the story leapt beyond the barracks. Defense blogs whispered about an unnamed mentor. A retired Marine colonel tweeted, if the ghost of the Meong is really alive, God bless him. Inside the base, rumors became gospel. Young operators whispered his name like a prayer. Arthur Blackwood. Some swore he'd saved whole companies in Vietnam. Others claimed he vanished in '75 because no enemy could touch him. One evening, Rodriguez approached him in the garden shed. Sir, he said softly, I don't know if you realize this, but you've gone viral. They're talking about you online. Arthur didn't look up from pruning a rose bush. The internet has a funny way of inventing heroes, he murmured. His hand, steady and scarred, clipped another stem. I'm just the man who keeps these flowers alive. But he knew. The whispers weren't going away. Once again, history had reached out, tugging him from the shadows. That night, Arthur sat alone in his modest quarters. A single lamp cast soft light over the wooden table. Beside it lay an old photograph, his force recon unit grinning in jungle mud arms, slung around each other's shoulders. Most of them were gone now. He traced the edges of the photo with calloused fingers. Different kind of hunting, he whispered. His voice carried sorrow as much as pride. For decades, he had carried the weight of 347 confirmed kills, each one etched into his memory. He could still recall faces, the silence after the shot, the way war had turned boys into ghosts before their time. He had buried that life beneath hedges, lawns, and irrigation pipes. Peace had been found in soil, not steel. And yet when the young SEALs had struggled, instinct had pulled him back. Because deep down, Arthur knew something they didn't yet understand. Bullets might kill, but wisdom saved lives. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Perhaps his time as a ghost was ending. Perhaps the world needed to remember that legends didn't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wore coveralls and pushed rakes. The knock at his door startled him. When he opened it, Parker stood outside, posture, straight eyes filled with humility. Sir Parker said, the men and I were wondering, could you teach us more? Arthur studied the young lieutenant for a long moment. In Parker's eyes, he no longer saw arrogance. He saw hunger, respect, and maybe, just maybe, the kind of warrior worth passing knowledge to. Arthur stepped aside. Come in, Lieutenant. We'll start with breathing. In the weeks that followed, Arthur's presence became something unspoken, yet undeniable. The SEALs no longer mocked the groundskeeper. They greeted him with nods of respect, some even standing a little straighter when he passed. To outsiders, he was still just the man pushing a cart, trimming roses, clearing leaves. But to the men who had watched bullets bend to his will, Arthur Blackwood was something else entirely, a reminder that legends walk quietly among us. Sometimes the most extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary places. They are janitors who once engineered bridges, mechanics who once flew combat sorties, gardeners who once changed the course of history with steady hands and a scope. One Tuesday morning, Arthur returned to his duties as if nothing had changed. The rake scraped gently against the gravel, a rhythm as familiar to him as breathing. But in the distance, he could hear the sharp crack of rifles and the tighter, truer impacts of young snipers who had learned that shooting was never about technology, but about humility, patience, and respect. He smiled faintly. Perhaps the ghost had done enough. Perhaps the next generation would carry forward what he had buried. And maybe history itself sometimes disguises greatness as an ordinary Tuesday morning. Have you ever met someone whose true story was far different from what you first believed? Tell us in the comments below. And if stories like Arthur Blackwood's remind you that heroes walk among us every day, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Because the next time you see someone quietly going about their work, remember you might be looking at history itself disguised as an old man with a rake.